Welcome to the Along Podcast. I'm Sierra, a millennial.
And I'm Tracy, a baby boomer.
And on this show, we're not afraid to talk about age and how it changes things. Health, relationships, lifestyle, wellness, you name it, just everything in life. So come along, because today we are talking about friendships. And Tracy, I have been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's probably because I'm 35 and I'm probably getting, I hate to admit it, but into a new stage in my life. And I've been thinking a lot about how friendships change as you get older, but also about how hard it is to make friends as you get older, right? And I guess I've been doing a little bit of an audit of my friends, which sounds very aggressive, but I have been really thinking about what friendships are really serving me, which ones are working, and are some of these really going to carry me throughout my adult life? I don't know. Have you ever been in a situation where you've thought about your friends like that?
Always.
Yeah. Is it constant, or do you feel like it happened in specific stages in your life?
I guess because I've had the same sort of tribe for my whole life, and then I have newer friends, of course, that sort of colored how I look at friendship, because they're really like my sisters.
Yeah.
They feel like that for me more than, my own sister. I mean, she's fine. It's just...
She's fine.
Don't worry. I'm not going to throw my dear sister under the bus. We just, let's just say we are on different paths. So my friends that my core group, and as you kids like to say, friend group.
Yeah. Well, I think friends really become your chosen family. So it's funny that you say sisters, right? Because especially if you move away from where you grew up, which a lot of people, we live in a city, right? And so a lot of people did move away from wherever their hometown was. And the friends that you surround yourself become the people that you lean on because of where they are, right? The immediacy to you and how often they're in your everyday life. Unlike maybe if you live at home right next to your family, maybe your friend group is not as close, or maybe it is. I don't know. Some people are probably like that.
I think you're right, though. I think it's if you are from somewhere else, and that's the biggest change, I think, over the decades.
Yeah.
Is the fact that people don't stay in their town for the most part. They go elsewhere. And so that's a whole other group of friends you got to meet.
Yeah. So I was really curious because I spent a lot, when I was thinking about researching this, I spent a lot of time thinking about what is a normal friendship? What's a normal level of somebody having friends? I would consider myself a really sociable person. I would consider myself an extrovert. I don't know about you, but I feel like I have a lot of friends. But close friends, I don't know. As I've gotten older, I've really reevaluated what a close friend really means, right? Because in my 20s, I had a lot of friends that were party friends, the people that you see on the weekend, but I'm not calling them up if something's going wrong. I'm probably calling them up if I'm going through a breakup and I need to get over someone real quick and get out to the club. But I'm just not in that stage in my life anymore.
Wait, can I ask you about
what?
that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Get over someone real quick?
Yeah, that means to get on top of someone else.
I guess it must be a millennial thing. I'm trying to think back, but I want to learn.
Is that not how you did it in your day?
I don't know if we got over people very quickly. I don't know about that.
Well, this day and age, even what I said is outdated, because nowadays you would just download a Hinge or something like that. You wouldn't even be out at the club. You would be on Hinge or Raya or Tinder or whatever.
It's a whole other world.
I know, it's a whole other world. But anyway, okay. So in preparation for this episode, I mean, look, we all know that friends are important, right? If there's anything that taught us that, it was probably the pandemic that taught us that separation from people and separation from your friends feels cruel, and they have a really special place in your life and they do add value. So I was curious, what is the normal size friend group? How many close friends would you say you have right now?
And you mean my soul sister friends?
Close friends, however you want to define close friends.
Well, because my soul sister friends, and you know what is funny, Sierra? I don't care. I'll tell you. I will go through the numbers of now I add up all my friends who are single. All my friends are single, no kids. I do this. It's a thing I do. And so that my core friend group is probably, I would say 10.
10. That's a lot.
I mean, close friends who I don't necessarily talk to
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's Laura and there's
And they all know each other?
no, my original group is probably like 6.
Okay. That's still a big group.
And then the other, there's like there are other, yeah, I would say I have probably, and you know that I feel, yeah, about 10, like the 2 friends that I just went to visit. And they're my friends from the 80s, from the restaurant business era. That's that era.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of history now. But I have friends before that, whole different group of friends. But I consider them pretty good friends.
Yeah.
I mean, like family.
And that's amazing. And also, what I will say is, I think it's amazing that you have a group of 6 female friends that are still tight. Because I don't hear that a lot.
You don't?
No. And we're going to get a little bit further into that. But so here's what the research says. So there was a 2023 Pew study about American friendships. And this study came out and it said that 53% of Americans say they have between 1 and 4 close friends. So half say they have at least 1 close friend, but up to 4. Only 38% say they have 5 or more close friends. So you are in that top tier, madame. You are in the top tier of close friends.
I feel so much better now.
I know, right?
Well, and the thing that's different, Sierra, because to me, I look at that as those friends, but then I look at my friends like in my world here, and that's not I don't have that. The number's not very big.
Yeah. Specifically in LA. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think I would argue that most of my close friends are actually people that I met in my 20s that live in New York, and we don't, because I used to live in New York, right? I went to college in New York, then I went to New York straight out of college. Most of my close friends are people that were from that time period of my life. And we don't talk all the time, but they would drop everything for me, right? So close friends doesn't necessarily mean same proximity. We're going to get into that again later, but I want to give you one more stat. So this was another interesting stat, I thought, because this really talks to generations. And it's that about half of adults 65 and older have 5 or more close friends. So they're considering 5 or more a lot of close friends. 40% of adults aged 50 to 64 have 5 or more close friends. And the number just keeps going down of who has a lot of close friends. When you get to 30 to 49, it's only 34% of adults. And when you get to younger than 30, it's only 32% of adults. So what that says is that people who are younger right now have fewer close friends than people who are older. And I think that's more of a generational thing, because I think we can all agree that as we get older, friendships kind of dissipate. But that really says to me that the younger generation now, and even people in my age group, didn't have as big of friend groups to begin with, which is really interesting, right? And you know what? You can argue what a close friend really means. I think that's different to everybody. But at the end of the day, I think a close friend is really about like what you are as a friend and if that person's matching you, right? Do you feel like all of your friends kind of meet that, all of your close friends kind of meet that criteria?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what one of the criteria is?
Sure.
And it is one of my friends' birthdays today, is birthdays.
Oh, that they remember your birthday.
Yeah. And to me, it's important. I'm talking about a text. I'm not talking about we still do exchange, just a few of us.
That's
which
cute.
We have to stop doing that. Birthday.
No, don't stop.
Well, and Julie's kind of the core girl. We're all girls to me in the group. So she's that one who always, that's just how she is. And she's wonderful that way. But, we always remember each other's birthdays, and we'll do like girls' weekends and things like that. So we do stay connected in that way, but maybe we don't talk all the time, but There is that thing that we're soul sisters.
But you don't need to talk all the time because you know that the effort is made when it needs to be made.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And I think that's important. I would say most of my friends fall in that category as well. I don't have a lot of friends that I talk to every single day. In fact, I would argue I don't talk to any of my friends every single day.
Is there anybody this day and age that does?
No. The only person I talk to every day is my boyfriend. Unless we're traveling, and sometimes I forget. But but it is what it is. I'm a very it's an ADD thing. It's like out of sight, out of mind, and that's just how it works. But that doesn't mean I don't care, and I will show up when the time is necessary. But I think what I've really been thinking about as I've gotten older and I've been doing this audit of my friends is it a me problem? Am I changing somewhere in my life? Or is this person really a bad friend? Or is it natural that people just grow apart? And so I did some, I went on a journey. Do you know who Mel Robbins is?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Mel Robbins. We love Mel Robbins. And she had this podcast episode talking about friendships. And she has something she talks about this thing called the great scattering. And she says it happens a lot of times like post-college, around your 20s is the first time this happens in life. But what happens here is that there are like 3 things that really keep a friendship together. And those 3 things are proximity, timing, and energy. That's what makes a friendship work. And ultimately, no matter where you are in your life, if one of those 3 things is out of whack, the friendship is probably going to start feeling like it's falling apart. And she specifically talks about people in their early 20s after they leave college, where they probably spent a lot of time in the same place, talking about the same things because they were in the same general time phase in their life, and they had the same amount of time commitment to be able to give to each other, right? And then once they separate and they go their own ways, maybe they go off to a job across the country, or some of them go and start a family or whatever it is, you start to have different parts of your life that are no longer in this alignment, and that's when things start to fall apart. So proximity, timing, and energy. Proximity, very obvious one, means same location or frequently, consistently next to each other. Timing means like either same place in their life or the same sort of availability. And energy, meaning that you are both able to provide the same level of energy to the friendship. What do you think about that?
I think that makes sense. I mean, the thing that I don't have with my soul sisters is we're we all did grow up together. So we started out geographically desirable. And then, we moved, different people moved. So that made a difference. But it did change the quality of the friendship.
Yeah. But you guys make an effort to see each other, right?
Not enough. And Julie's the one. See, she's like the queen bee. And she's like, okay, you guys, let's make a plan. Everybody goes, let's do that. We got to get together soon. The usual.
Yeah.
And
it stays in the group chat.
And she will bug us. She will bug us until we make a plan.
Well, good. Somebody needs to do it.
I tell her, because she was pressuring me, and I went to see her in Seattle. She goes, you haven't seen me. You haven't come to visit me in Seattle. I've seen her elsewhere. You need to do this. And so I go, thanks, Jewel. I'm so glad that you bugged me to do that.
Yeah, it's important.
Because it does help.
It does help. And I think, I live, again, 3,000 miles away from some of my friends. But when I'm in New York, I make a point to pick one friend every single time that I reach out to. I can't try and see all of my friends every time I go for work because it gets too exhausting, and I can't really predict what my evenings are going to be if there's like a work event that needs to go on or something like that. Plus, I just don't want to be drinking every single night when I'm supposed to be there for work. But I try to make a point to see at least one friend every single time. And sometimes I get multiple friends in there. But I'm really thankful that when I do that, my friends will drop whatever's going on in their life. And that's how it's good friendship. And vice versa, when they're here, same thing. If I had plans with another friend who lives in town, sorry, I got to bump you to next week. They're only here for one night. It's just how it is. Or you can come and, join with my other friend. But I do think the making an effort to, when you can be in the same area, to do that, I think that's the sign of a true friendship and a sign of like what makes a friendship successful, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking, when you're talking, I'm thinking about my friend in New York, who I actually stay with. And I just did recently, and I'm thinking about this a lot. What you're talking about, I'm thinking about how important that is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably part of the baby boomer thing too. And my thinking about getting older and really realizing in any age that you have to make an effort.
You do.
And so, like, spending time with Laura was great. I saw my friend in DC. So I feel like those kind of things are really important.
But not just you have to make an effort. It has to be the same amount of effort on each side. So it could be very minimal effort, right? That, we don't talk all the time.
Right.
But whenever something's big is going on, I'm always there for them. That's one level of effort. Or it could be the type of friends that talk to each other every single day. And that's the same level of effort. The effort has to be matched.
Do you know any friends who do that?
I do. I do. And I actually have one friend. He used to be my neighbor. And he and I would see each other all the time because he literally had to pass my door in order to like leave his house. So we would see each other all the time. Then he moved to Texas for a couple years. Obviously, we didn't talk as often because he wasn't here and we weren't hanging out as often. And to be honest, when he did move here, we were hanging out not quite every weekend, but every couple weekends we would go and get drinks or something like that. It was more the just daily interactions that we constantly had with each other. And when he moved back, he's the type of friend that really likes a friendship that is constant communication. And that's great. We had to have a conversation about it because he felt really disappointed about the fact that we weren't hanging out all the time. And we had to have a conversation about the fact that, well, part of the reason we were doing that was because you were literally right next door. It's a lot easier to be like, oh, you're not doing anything after work? Do you want to go grab a drink real quick? I was going to go get dinner, or I was going to go do this. There's a lot more happenstance that happens, it's kind of the same of when people were no longer in the office and that water cooler talk went away. Same concept, because we no longer lived by each other. And so I had to make a better effort of reaching out to him, and we've talked through that, and it's made our friendship stronger to be able to talk through, this is what I need in a friendship, or this is what I expect. And it made me sad that I wasn't seeing you as often as I wanted to when I moved back. And I think that was really healthy for us to do that. But he is that type of friend that is a little bit more checking in all the time. He has one friend who's been his best friend forever that they talk all day long via text message, all day. Like they're dating. It's cute, really.
This is really good. I mean, this is making me think about making the effort with people, just because I think we take things for granted. I think after a while, and you just sort of, you do your life and your friends are there, but I'm inspired. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad I could help. Okay, so the other thing that I was thinking about was, I think it's funny that you have a big group of girlfriends, because to me that seems, first of all, the fact that you guys have been friends for so long is amazing. And
since I was 9. I have friends since I was 9 years old.
And that there's been no big fallouts in the group, that no one got annexed or something like that. So rare for women.
Well, I mean, there definitely have been issues. But
also, I think a big way that friendships fall apart naturally are when people get married, or they move, or there's some big life event, or they have kids, right? And like when people have kids and their friends are still single, I think that causes, hopefully not a rift, but it does cause a big difference in terms of what is going on in your life and then what you sort of bond over, right? And so it's amazing that you have had this group of friends and you've been able to sort of ride the wave, because one of the shows that I have to tell you that I find incredibly unrealistic when we're talking about friendships is Sex and the City. I think that show is absolutely unhinged with how it is portraying female friendships. I don't think it's realistic.
Well, it's definitely not realistic, but I love it.
It was a great show. Don't
But
get me wrong.
I know what. No, I do know what you're saying. I mean, come on, Carrie. How can Carrie afford where she lives? Just take that. As
Not even just that.
the
I'm
practical.
just talking Miranda moving to Brooklyn and having a baby.
Yeah.
Samantha moving all the way to California. Charlotte being the Upper East Side or Upper West Side, princess that she is, and wanting, like, all of those people have completely different personalities, and yet somehow are friends through years and years and years and go through all of these different life stages. And that to me is not realistic. It's not. I think naturally people, when they go through different life stages, they sort of fall off from the friend group. Those women still see each other every weekend for brunch. That's unrealistic. It really is. That just doesn't happen. But I mean, goals, I would love that. I would love if I had a friend group like that. I just don't know that that's the measure of what friendship really looks like. It's a great show. It's a great concept, but I don't think that's what normal friendship looks like.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, I agree on every front, and that it's unrealistic. Yet you hit on it. That I think we all kind of envy that, and we know it's not real. We know it's not real, but we also know it's not realistic.
Yeah.
And yes, I would love that though. And I would love that kind of connection where you all live in the same place though. See, that's the difference. I mean, Brooklyn, okay. She moved to Brooklyn, and
I've had going away parties for people in New York who moved to Queens.
Oh my God.
And you know what? I did not see them for like 2 years.
So there's a realistic thing, because
that is realistic. You know what's also unrealistic? Friends. When they are having breakfast at Monica's house on a weekday morning, Phoebe in particular, who lives uptown, is going to the West Village to have breakfast at Monica's. What? That is not a thing. That never happens. First of all, I lived a half block away from one of my friends, and I had to make a point once a month to see her because we never saw each other in New York. It is really difficult in a city like that to make time to be with your friends and to hang out. So like even that connection of them constantly being at the coffee house, that's not a realistic version of friendship. It's just not.
It sure is fun.
It is fun. It really is.
My friends that I went to visit, so two of my close friends, Trish is married to Vince. Vince is like one of the girls in the sense that he's one of those guys who loves women. And anytime we get together, Vinny's got to be part of it because he's that kind of guy. But we all, we were younger, so this is a different era, but it was such a magical time, and we would all get off work and go to Ginsberg's, but it was the restaurant. It's like being in college.
Yeah.
It was really like that.
So that's interesting because again, when I think about where I made friends at most points in my life, it's all it was either around work or school. And that location or that activity put us in the same kind of place in life. Mm-hmm. So even you probably had this experience at the restaurant, right? There were probably some people that were outside of your age group a little bit, but you all had the shared experience at the restaurant, and that's what brought you together.
So true.
And I think that's really interesting to think about now of like how we create friendships, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we've been talking a lot about female friendships, and I want to talk to Greg over here about male friendships, because you've probably heard this, and it comes from a 1982 article by Paul Wright, where he cites that men bond side to side via shared activities. We're talking, it doesn't necessarily have to be required. And women bond face to face, meaning we bond more about talking and having like intimate conversation, whereas men just have to be doing the same thing.
It's so funny because it automatically conjures up sports.
It is. Yes, exactly.
Right?
So what do you think about this, Greg? Do you feel like this is accurate? And how do you think male friendships are different than female friendships?
I think it's very accurate, but more from like your casual friend standpoint, I mean, it may, I don't know, maybe I'm an outlier because I do feel like I have a lot of really close male friendships and people that I can talk to about, intimate subjects and whatever, that maybe a lot of guys don't have. But But, I think everyone has at least one kind of bro that they can at least get drunk with and kind of spill their feelings to once in a while. But like, as far as like your casual friend group, or it's like maybe these are the guys you kind of only see when everyone's hanging out. Yes. No one's like talking about their feelings. Like it's generally not super chatty. Like, it's like there's a game on and you kind of make little conversation about what's happening on the screen, or you're at a bar throwing darts and maybe there's a little bit, this thing at work, or you're telling a funny story. Versus I feel like when women in a casual setting with people maybe they don't know that well, or they're just like kind of their casual friends, will get into all this nitty gritty.
The gossip is the activity.
Yeah,
Greg.
exactly. Like they will sit around like in a circle face to face and just chat and whatever. Like guys were like, no, we need something else to be happening. It's why everyone just plays golf now at my age. Like every friend
But then you guys don't even talk to each other either. I feel like there's always the running joke that women will ask their boyfriends, "Oh, so what's going on with Steve in his divorce?" I don't know. We didn't talk about it. What? You just spent 5 hours with him. His divorce didn't come up once?
My friend's wife asked, like, she was like, wow, you guys golf, it takes like 5 or 6 hours. And like, you see these guys, once or twice a week. You must know so much about each other. And he's like, yeah, not really. She's like, what do you mean? Don't you guys talk? And he's like, yeah, not really. I mean, about the game and stuff, but like mostly everyone's just mad because they lost their ball and like no one's really.
Let me tell you, golf sounds real relaxing whenever.
I mean, in a way, sometimes that doesn't sound so bad. I mean, when I was younger, women, of course, when it came to men, and oh my God, we would get into the nitty gritty. We don't do that at all anymore. Well, that's a whole other subject. But I don't know. I mean, but you do have that. You do have that experience with certain friends, but then you have the other group where you just don't need to do it.
Yeah. And most of those friends that are like the really close friends, a lot of them don't live nearby. It's like people. So I have like my best friend from high school who I still, we chat on the phone at least once a week for a couple hours. Fraternity brothers from college that I'm still really close with. And then, I mean, I do have a couple people in LA. But it's like, people are kind of spread out, but we keep in touch, and some of them, like, we don't really talk that often, but it's like, I try to get back to Maine and see, this group of friends once a year or so and, connect with them. And it's like no time has passed. Right. But as far as just like your casual friend group with who you going out with on a weekend, like any random weekend. Yeah. It's not always like the people that you're going to be, if you were really going through something hard in life, that you would be like unloading it on them,
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think that for most people, I don't know, this is a generalization. I'm not backing this up with any facts, but I would argue that for most people, your closest friends are often your older friends, the people that you've known for a while in your life. And I actually have a funny story to tell, because I had a moment where I was really frustrated with a friend, because she had kind of disappointed me in being there for me during a pretty hard point in my life. And I was talking to a casual friend about it. So it was like a drunken night, right? And this girl, her name's the girl that I am referencing that I was talking to this about, her name is Tia. Her and I have been in the same friend group for a while, but more like see each other like once every couple months. She was a friend of another friend and good drinking buddies, but had never really gotten to know her that close. So one night I was very upset about my other friend and I was ranting to Tia, and we were talking about how hard it is to make friends that are like close, like really close friends. And she looked at me and she goes, "I'll be your close friend." And I go, "Okay." And it was just like okay, we're close friends now. It was like a decision. Like, you're going to be there for me and I'm going to be there for you. And it was so funny because I've never had that conversation with somebody. But I was like, is this what making close friends when you're 35 is that you have to be like, do you want to be my close friend? Yes? Okay, cool.
I love that.
But you know what? It was great. And now we're close friends.
I was going to say, are you close friends?
Yeah, we are, which is great. But
so
it
maybe
was so
we need
funny
to do that.
I know, it was so funny that we had to have like a very distinct, I'll be your close friend.
You know what, Sierra, I think what happens too is that we make certain assumptions.
Yeah.
And I love that example.
Well, I think it gets harder. I mean, this is in general, as we get older, we get more stuck in our ways, right? And so we go out less. We try new experiences less because we already kind of go on autopilot of what we know is going to work for us. And inevitably what ends up happening then is you don't really open yourself up to new experiences and new people. And you also don't open yourself up to new types of people when you do that. And I think that's what really inhibits people from having friends, is that it gets harder as you get older because you already kind of know what you like and you're less likely to try something new. Yeah. And that's, that just goes to show, like, we've done an episode about breaking out of your comfort zone. We've done an episode about changing up your routine. All of those things I think are really important if you're finding it hard to find friends, and if you're finding it hard to have friends that are close to you and are in your stage of life. That probably means you need to break out of your comfort zone and find new places to find friends, right?
Absolutely.
I'm curious, what do you think? We've talked about like what we like in friendship, but what do you think makes a bad friend?
It's a couple of things, but I think a bad friend is not necessarily a flaky friend. Because I have some friends that, they cancel on plans and stuff. And I try to go with the flow and not make a big issue of it. So I just don't take them as seriously. And I know that that's probably what's going to happen. And then I lower my expectations. But I think the main thing is, how do you feel? This is my test. When you spend time with somebody and you leave, how do you feel?
That is a great test. I do that
Yeah.
often.
Do you?
Yeah.
And so if you leave feeling good, like the two friends I went to visit, I felt really good leaving. It felt good, although I had some issues with my mom, so that something came up during that time. But it's like we laugh a lot, and it's just, I feel supported.
Your cup feels full.
Yeah, it does. It did.
Yeah, and I've noticed that a lot too. And I've actually, there must have been some sort of like TikTok or something of somebody, or maybe it was a Mel Robbins quote or something like that, that people have been actually talking about this a lot, because I've had a few friends that we've had this conversation about whether our cup feels full with certain people or we feel drained.
Exactly.
And I think that's really important because we are all crunched for time. Everybody, right? So when you decide to invest your time and energy in someone, I think it's important that that's matched. People are allowed to have bad days, and people are allowed to go through phases in their life where they get to be a little bit selfish or they get to be a little bit needy. But if you're constantly feeling drained from a friendship, I think that's a really bad sign. It's at least a sign to take a step back and be like, why am I feeling this way? What's going on? Is it me? Is it them? What's happening?
And it's feeling maybe taken for granted or unappreciated on some level. And then I think, well, is it me or is it them? I mean, I always want to check in that way and not feel like I want to just take responsibility for how I'm feeling.
Yes, that's so important. Somebody once said to me, expectations are premeditated resentments. And I think that is a really good thing to ask yourself whether it's a friendship or a relationship, of what are my expectations of this? Am I being realistic with my expectations? Because if you're setting expectations that are not realistic for how you either know someone already is, they've shown you who they are, and you know that that's not realistic for them, then perhaps either you need to analyze whether or not you can have that person in your life, or you need to reset your expectations, because otherwise it's going to lead to resentment, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's so true about expectations. I want to go and after this and call friends. I mean, it's really making me think.
Okay, one of the other things that I think about, and this kind of gets to our earlier conversation where we were talking about energy, right? Of putting more energy into relationships. I think matching energy is really important. In any relationship, including like romantic ones, I would argue that if somebody is putting in a lot of energy and somebody's doing nothing, it's not going to work out, right? So like both parties have to have the same amount of energy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be all the time. And it doesn't mean that both parties have to constantly be giving the energy at the same level all the time. Sometimes somebody's going to need a little bit more help and another friend's going to have to step in and really give a lot of energy. And then other times, as long as it's like a balance, I think over time, that's kind of the key. But I would argue a toxic friendship is if you're in a situation, and I feel like, honestly, I've found myself in friendships like this and had to really re-examine how much effort I want to put into them. A toxic friendship is a friendship where you are constantly giving effort and energy, but when you need them, they're not there.
Absolutely.
And it sucks because sometimes those people can be really good people, just not good friends, or not good for what you need in your life right now. Have you ever?
I mean, I'm thinking of a particular friend, and I adore him, but it's not about me. It is not about me. I mean, maybe it is, but I don't think so. I just sort of have accepted it for the way it is, and that when I reach out, he never texts back because that's the way he is with everyone. But there is a point where you go, you know what? I'm just not going to keep putting the effort in. I'm not going to do that anymore because it's more about what I feel I deserve. And it's not about being mad at the person. It's just about treasuring yourself.
It's boundaries,
right?
At the end of the day. It's respect for yourself. I think boundaries are being respectful to yourself. That's what that means to me. And saying that I'm not going to put a certain amount of energy in because I'm not getting that back, that's a boundary. That's a boundary that you're having with yourself.
And it's a weird thing because I think it's good to reach out, even if you're reaching out more than they are. I think that's okay. But after a point, I do think that we have to look at that and say we deserve better. And that's just taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. Would you ever, not necessarily with this friend, but in general, consider just like cold not talking to someone anymore?
You mean like cutting them out
Cutting
100%? I don't know if I would do that. I mean, if they would reach out and just ghost them.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody that is on my list at this point.
Yeah.
But I'll get back to you.
I don't think I could do that either. Even with this friend that really got me thinking about a lot of this, I call it, I'm reclassifying them because, and it doesn't have to be forever that they're like downgraded in the classification, but just at this stage in my life, I just think that we're not matching energies right now. So I'm just similar to what you're talking about, making less of an effort to call. And you know what's interesting? She doesn't call either.
Yeah, actually, I thought of another friend too. Oh my God, it's that situation where somebody who I really do care about, and I just thought, well, if I don't reach out, what will happen? And I got my answer, and it doesn't mean that she's not a good person at all. It just tells me something.
I also don't think it has to be forever that way.
Right.
I kind of live in the gray area in my mind a lot. I try not to be too much in the black and white space. And I really just think about it like, okay, where I'm in my life and where she is in her life, they're just not matching right now. And that's okay. Doesn't mean I don't hate her. I don't hold any resentment for that. I think there was a period of time where I was a little resentful and it really was bothering me and I would really like get on it. And then I realized, Sierra, this is a you thing. You need to take a step back and reset your expectations of what this friendship can be, reclassify it, and have it live over here instead of where it was before. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be there forever. It can be at a lower level for a while. And then maybe when the time is right, and hopefully that does happen, when things are better aligned, you guys can kind of reignite and bring that friendship back up. But right now is not the time because it's not good for you to have an expectation of something that is just not being met. And then you're angry about it.
There's a saying in one of my books that I highlight and read, close my eyes and open it kind of thing for a message, that a favorite. And it goes something like this. You don't need anyone or anything. That way you can enjoy everyone and everything And there is something to that. It's sort of that notion that, I mean, we all need people. But when you lower the expectation, it's like the point is to lower that, like you said, that expectation, and then also move on. Also know when we need to move on and say, you know what? Because we don't need that person or that person to make us happy. So we can just let them go.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to do that.
You know, that's such a good point, because I do think that a lot of people's expectations of people is often wrapped up in how I expect you to serve me in my life. And I mean, that's inherently what it is, right? I expect you to do this or fulfill this need, and those needs aren't being met. So bye. But the truth of the matter is that some of that, of what you just said, is that we need to take ownership of things that we can fulfill ourselves, that we shouldn't put on somebody else to do. And this, again, can go for friendship or a romantic relationship. But taking a second to really evaluate what your expectations are and ask yourself, am I doing the same for them? If I have that expectation of them as a friend, am I also doing that for them? And if I'm doing that and they're not doing it in return, why am I doing it? Am I doing it because I want to be a good friend, or am I doing it because I want them to do it for me? Very different things. And I think it's really important to ask yourself of like your motive behind it. And also ask yourself, why do I need someone to do that for me?
Exactly.
I'm not saying that means throw all those expectations out. Just really do an evaluation of why you're doing it and what you're expecting of those friendships. And I don't think it's fair for us to expect our friends to be there every single time we have a downfall, or every single time we're struggling. You hope that they're there a majority of the time, but they got their lives too. And there's this term, Gen Z loves this term, holding space. How do you feel about that term, holding space?
You want my honest opinion?
I want your honest opinion.
Sorry, Gen Zers. It's fine that you say it. It's a little woo-woo for me.
Yeah.
It's a, you know.
Yeah.
It's a thing. I don't know.
Greg, what do you think about the term holding space? Do you know what it means?
Can't wait to hear
I
it.
thought I did until you just asked. Maybe I don't. What I think it is just like, I don't know. It's like slang for I'm like thinking about and making mental space for this thing. Like I'm making this a priority. I'm holding space for something.
Yes. So it's about being an active friend or an active listener of I'm here for your problems, and I'm going to invest in your problems or invest in whatever you're saying.
And just to jump in to clarify I'm just talking about the term. The meaning behind it, I'm all in for it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
what I really like about the term, I get it. I do
Yeah,
agree
I
that
need
it
to
sounds a little woo-woo. What I do really like about it is that it acknowledges the fact that not everybody has the space to be dealing with other people's problems. Sometimes you got way too much of your own shit going on that you do not have any energy left to give to anybody else. And that's okay. And being honest about that. So what I do like, actually, and what Gen Z I think got right here, is that they've created this shorthand for I've got space for you, aka I can be a person that you can emotionally dump on, because I have the capability of dealing with that right now. And I think that's so cool to openly have that conversation. We didn't really have that conversation when I was their age, but I do have that conversation now with my friends where I'm really honest with them about like, look, I got a lot going on and I just can't, but I will make time for you when I can, you know? And if my friends are really going through something, I try and stop everything going on, but sometimes it's really hard. And sometimes you have a threshold. Like if you've ever had a friend that's going through a breakup and they call you 5 times a day and you're like, I love you, Sarah, but get over it. Okay. There's only so many times I can pick up your phone call. Like, you know, it happens.
And I think it is good to hold space. We would say, we boomers would call it, I'm there for you.
Yeah.
That's just the phrase we would use. And I honestly, I really like that. when somebody comes to me, I don't mean like what you're describing with somebody who's calling ad nauseum about their breakup, but I'm just saying I love that sense of that I can help somebody. So I think I need to do that for my friends so that because it's like, sometimes we don't do that. We're like, no, I can handle it myself.
Yeah.
And when you reach out, we don't realize that is also a really loving thing to do, as long as you don't abuse it.
Yeah.
To let the person know that you need help, and people like that. And it's something that I personally, as an independent person, need to work on, because that can bring you closer.
Yeah. Can I tell you something that I think I've mentioned this on the show before. I have a habit tracker. And one of the things that I put on my habit tracker is to reach out to someone every week that I haven't reached out to in a while.
The habit tracker, I need to know about this.
A habit tracker? Are you not familiar with a habit tracker?
No.
Okay, a habit tracker is something that you can, I have an app on my phone, but you can do like it wherever you want. Some people do it in like Notion or something like that. But a habit tracker is a thing where you keep a list of either habits you want to break or habits you want to build. And it's like a little check box, and it'll show you a graph of how long you've successfully done a streak. And the idea is that you get this little dopamine hit of trying to not break the streak. So it becomes like a game.
I want to do this.
I'll show you the app after this.
No, I'm serious. That sounds really good.
I know.
I've learned so much.
It's really helped me build a lot of habits, to be 100% honest. But one of the habits I had was reaching out to somebody that I don't talk to that often. A lot of times it's people in New York, or it's like family members or something like that. So I make a point every week. I text somebody that I haven't talked to in a while.
I love it.
And I feel like it does help me stay connected to people that I normally would go 6 months without talking to. So yeah, that's my little tip. But I do want to talk more about tips and tricks, because I think something that's really interesting about this podcast and our dynamic is that we're all friends, and we're friends of different ages. We are friends that came from all over the world, right? It's funny. What would you say, Tracy, is your like tips and tricks of how you make friends that are outside of your age group?
Terrace time.
Terrace time.
Yeah. So, and we talked about this in
decluttering.
I guess it might have been declutter. I created this thing years ago, and I have a balcony. I admit it's not a terrace, but I like to think of it as one. And it's enough room to have a handful of friends come over. So I started doing this, and I started calling it Terrace Time. And it kind of stuck with people, and it wasn't anything particularly special. It just was naming it, I think, made it a thing. So now, probably 10 years later, people know about Terrace Time, and I cherish it. I love that.
People love an alliteration.
That's
and
true.
They do, and that would
true.
Exactly, of course.
That's very true. What about you, Greg? What's your tip for making friends?
Man, tips for making friends. I think you just have to be open. I think I probably have a better tip for like maintaining friends.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I am like pretty bad at, reaching out or and just busy a lot. And so like, I feel like sometimes, people will hit you up like a few weekends in a row, and you have to decline because you're working or doing whatever.
We're all busy. Yeah.
Right. And then you feel like, oh, after a while, it's like you're saying, you stop putting, it's like, oh, if this person isn't putting energy in, then, they just will stop hitting you up. And so I try to make a point when I do finally have free weekends. I'm like, okay, who were the people that had been reaching out to me? Let me make sure that I invite them out to whatever this thing is. And so now I'm the one reaching out. And so it's not just this like one, they feel like, oh, it's one-sided. It's like, I actually would love to hang out with you. I just was busy. But, now when I actually have the time, it's like, I try to remember, okay, who,
I like that.
Who haven't I, reached out to, and let me make sure I do something with them now that I have this free time.
I think that's a great rule of thumb.
Yeah, I think that's great. Having a list of people who have reached out to you that you have not had the time for, that you want to make sure you pay attention to. That's really cool. I would say my tip would be to get out and do things that subject you to people that are not normally the type of people you would be around. For me, it's like a spin class. my spin class is full of people from 20 to 80. And tonight I'm going to a birthday party of somebody who's in the middle of that age range, and all of them will be there.
That's great.
And I think that's so cool to have a bunch of friends that we are united over our love for like this one activity. We don't hang out every weekend, but to just have those people in your like, it gives you a different perspective. And I would argue that having friends that don't agree with you on everything, that have a different perspective, whether it's from age or culturally, or they come from a different part of the country, whatever it is, that helps you grow as a person. It builds your tolerance too. And I think it's really important to sort of expand your circle in that way, because we get too close in our circles, and there's value to having those close-knit circles and those old friends. There's also a lot of value to that, allowing new people in.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other tips and tricks before we end this episode?
I'm just going to go and call my friend that I need to reach out to. I've been so inspired.
Cool. Thanks for coming along today. If you'd like more, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Along Podcast, and give us a follow on whatever platform you're listening or watching on today. Thanks.